With LeBron and Luka or LeBron and Austin, they're around -5 with both of those pairings. So a full 10-point swing. It doesn't matter which way you want to cut it. LeBron is the one. Of the three, it's not like, oh, they just don't mesh all three. No, LeBron is making this team worse, period.
Something strange is happening in Los Angeles. A conversation that once sounded completely impossible is now spreading across the NBA world. It started quietly. A few analysts here and there. A few fans on social media pointing out strange numbers. But over the past few weeks, the discussion has grown louder and harder to ignore. More and more people are beginning to ask a question that, until recently, almost felt forbidden. What if the Lakers are actually playing better without LeBron James on the floor? For over 2 decades, basketball fans have been conditioned to believe the opposite. The entire modern NBA era has been shaped by the idea that wherever LeBron goes, success follows. Championships, finals appearances, MVP debates, historic playoff runs, his presence has always meant that a team instantly becomes more dangerous. So the idea that a team might perform better without him sounds almost absurd at first. But the conversation has taken a very serious turn recently. Because when analysts like Jason Whitlock and Steve Kim started openly discussing the possibility on air, it signaled something important. This was no longer just a fringe internet debate. It had entered the mainstream basketball conversation. And once that door opened, the numbers started raising even more uncomfortable questions.
The most embarrassing Hall of Fame type finish, because LeBron last year, the year before, could have retired with class and dignity. He's hung on for his son to play with Bronny.
Before diving deeper into the numbers, there's one question every fan seems to have an opinion on. Is LeBron actually hurting the Lakers right now? Or would the team collapse completely without him? Because depending on who you ask, the answers are dramatically different. Some fans still see LeBron as the engine that keeps the team alive. They point to his leadership, his experience, and the fact that at 40 years old he can still dominate stretches of games. Others believe something more complicated is happening. They argue that the Lakers have quietly started transitioning into a different kind of team, one that revolves around younger ball-dominant playmakers like Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. And according to some analysts, that shift might be creating a basketball problem that no one inside the organization wants to publicly acknowledge. So before going further, drop your opinion in the comments. Do you think LeBron is still the Lakers' most important player? Or do you think the team might actually function better without him on the court? Because the lineup data fueling this debate is far more surprising than most fans expected.
There are probably over 100 5-man lineups that the Lakers have deployed this season, and really there's 3 of them of the 130 that I've looked at, like the top 3 most utilized 5-man lineups. 2 of the 3 of them use LeBron James. 1 of the 3 of them does not use LeBron James. The 2 with LeBron James are terrible. They're -5.5 with one of them and -23.5 with the other one of them. Whereas the 1 5-man lineup of the top 3 most utilized without LeBron is +16.
The entire debate exploded after Whitlock and Kim began examining some lineup statistics from the Lakers' most frequently used 5-man combinations this season. At first glance, the numbers looked normal. But when they dug deeper, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Among the Lakers' 3 most commonly used lineups, 2 include LeBron James. 1 does not. And the performance gap between them is enormous. The lineups featuring LeBron are struggling badly in terms of net rating. One sits at roughly -5. Another combination performs even worse, hovering around -23. In NBA terms, those numbers are extremely concerning. But the real shock came from the third lineup. The one that does not include LeBron. That group is sitting at +16. To casual fans, that might just sound like another statistic. But to basketball analysts, a swing that large is massive. It means that when that particular lineup is on the court, the Lakers are consistently outscoring opponents by a significant margin. And suddenly the conversation changes. Because if the best performing lineup doesn't include the most famous player on the roster, people are inevitably going to start asking why.
The Thunder this year are plus 11.9, so they would be like the best team in the NBA if it was just Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic and any other collection of three players you can think of that doesn't contain LeBron James.
Of course, statistics alone never tell the full story. Context always matters in basketball. But the size of the gap between those lineups is what grabbed everyone's attention. According to the analysis discussed on Whitlock's show, the Lakers' offense behaves very differently depending on who is controlling the ball. When Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves run the offense together without LeBron on the floor, the team's offensive flow improves dramatically. The two-man combination produces a positive net rating of around +5 per 100 possessions. That means when those two players are orchestrating the attack together, the Lakers are consistently winning those minutes. The ball moves faster. The spacing improves. The rhythm looks smoother. But the moment LeBron joins that pairing, the numbers change. Suddenly that same lineup drops into negative territory, hovering around -5. A 10-point swing in efficiency. That is the statistic that triggered Whitlock's strongest claim. If every lineup involving LeBron performs worse than the ones without him, then LeBron becomes the common denominator. And that leads to a brutally simple conclusion. Maybe the problem isn't the roster. Maybe it isn't the coach. Maybe it isn't the system. Maybe the issue is simply the fit.
That's like the only option. Other than that, Jason, book it, first round exit. Write it down in stone. They're out in the first round this year.
This sounds far-fetched and I'm really just trolling here, but if you put Luka and Austin out there with three other players who include Bronny James, are they better with Bronny James on the court than LeBron?
Jason, I'll tell you what, we'll put a pin in that one. I'll check that one out. That's very low on the 5-man rotation. I probably have to dig into like the 200s.
To understand the argument, you have to look at how these players operate. For most of his career, LeBron has been one of the most ball-dominant players in basketball history. His teams were designed around him controlling the offense, reading the defense, and making every major decision. That approach worked perfectly when he was in his athletic prime. But today's Lakers roster is built differently. Luka Doncic is also a high-usage superstar who thrives when the ball runs through him. Austin Reeves has developed into another creative playmaker capable of initiating offense. Put those three players on the court together and suddenly you have multiple ball-dominant creators trying to operate in the same space. In modern NBA offenses, that can create friction. Spacing becomes tighter. Possessions slow down. And instead of a fluid system, the offense can turn into a rotation of isolation plays where players take turns controlling the ball. According to Whitlock's argument, that's exactly what the Lakers are experiencing right now.
But what do you do, Jason? They can't cut him. But JJ Redick's not gonna bench him. What do you do? Does he feign injury to save face? Do the Lakers go and say, listen, we know we're going to lose in the first round if we roll this out. LeBron, we don't want to bench you. We don't want to cut you. Just pretend like you're hurt and we'll shut you down.
The conversation took an even more surprising turn when Steve Kim pushed the debate further than most analysts were willing to go. Up to that point, many commentators were simply pointing out the numbers. They were highlighting the strange lineup data, the net ratings, and the unusual statistical patterns appearing whenever certain combinations of players shared the floor. But Kim didn't stop at analyzing the problem. He proposed a solution. And it was a solution that, even a few years ago, would have sounded almost unimaginable in the world of basketball. Reduce the role of LeBron James. Not remove him. Not bench him permanently. But adjust his role strategically. Kim argued that the Los Angeles Lakers could seriously consider limiting LeBron's minutes to somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes per game. The idea wouldn't be to punish him or diminish his legacy. Instead, it would be about maximizing the efficiency of the team's current roster. In Kim's vision, LeBron would spend less time sharing the court with the team's primary creators, players like Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, and instead take on a different responsibility. He would lead the second unit. The logic behind the suggestion is actually very simple when viewed purely from a basketball perspective. Let the younger, ball-dominant playmakers run the starting offense. Allow them to establish the rhythm, control the pace, and build the system around their style of play. Then, when the bench units enter the game, bring LeBron in to control those minutes. In that role, his experience, vision, and decision-making could still create enormous advantages. Against opposing bench players, his ability to read defenses and manipulate the game could still dominate stretches of play. Instead of forcing three ball-dominant creators to share the same space, the Lakers would essentially split the responsibilities into different phases of the game. On paper, it's a logical basketball adjustment. But basketball decisions at the highest level are rarely just about tactics. Because standing in the way of that idea is one enormous obstacle. Ego. Not necessarily ego in a negative sense, but the reality that LeBron James is not just another veteran player nearing the end of his career. He is one of the most influential athletes the sport has ever seen. For more than 20 years, every team he has played for has been built around him. The offense has run through him. The leadership structure has revolved around him. Entire franchises have reshaped their rosters, coaching staffs, and strategies to maximize his strengths. From the Cleveland Cavaliers to the Miami Heat to the Los Angeles Lakers, LeBron has always been the central figure, the gravitational force around which everything else moves. So asking him to step aside, even partially, would represent one of the most dramatic role adjustments ever requested from a player of his stature. It would send shockwaves through the entire NBA. And that's why the conversation quickly shifts from strategy to something much bigger. Legacy. Because whether people like it or not, the final chapters of legendary careers often shape how history remembers them. For years, the greatest of all-time debate in basketball has revolved around two names: LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Fans on both sides have spent decades comparing every possible metric: championships, finals appearances, MVP awards, longevity, clutch performances, statistical records, impact on the game. The arguments have filled television debates, sports radio shows, and endless online discussions. Each side presents its evidence, each side defends its hero, and the debate has become one of the defining conversations in basketball culture. But critics like Jason Whitlock believe the ending of LeBron's career could still influence how future generations interpret that rivalry. Because sports history has a strange habit. It often remembers the endings more vividly than the middle chapters. The final images tend to stick. The final seasons. The final struggles. The final decisions. If LeBron's last years become associated with teams struggling to adjust around him, critics will use that narrative as ammunition in the GOAT debate. They will argue that his presence eventually complicated team success in ways that Jordan's career supposedly did not. Whether that argument is fair or not almost doesn't matter. In sports storytelling, perception can become reality very quickly. And right now, the Los Angeles Lakers find themselves standing at a difficult crossroads. On one side, they have a new generation of offensive creators developing their own identities. Players like Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves represent the potential future of the team's offensive system. They bring speed, creativity, and a style of play that reflects the modern NBA. On the sidelines, they have a young head coach in JJ Redick who is still trying to establish his philosophy and authority within the organization. And hovering over all of it is the towering presence of LeBron James, one of the most powerful and influential figures the sport has ever produced. His achievements are undeniable. 4 championships, multiple MVP awards, 2 decades of dominance, records that may never be broken. But influence of that magnitude also creates complexity. Because every decision the franchise makes will inevitably be viewed through the lens of how it affects LeBron. And if the Lakers continue to struggle on the court, the pressure on the organization will only intensify. Fans will demand answers. Analysts will demand adjustments. Ownership will demand results. Eventually, the franchise may be forced to confront a question it has been quietly trying.